Hi, my name is Flip Awesome Aguilera, and welcome to WEYT, the show where I find interesting people just like you and discover what's going on between their ears. Now, let's get to know one another. What's good, universe, world, everybody? Flip Awesome Aguilera here, and the mantra of the day is, the truth will set you free, but not before it's had its way with you. So in these times that we're in, that's we might need to remind ourselves that, the truth will get you where you want to go if you're willing to follow it, but it's gonna be an adventure. And
Have your way
today,
with me, truth. Have your way with me.
and as you can see, I have the man, the myth, the legend, bi-coastal in his lifetime. I've got Lorenzo Haire. And who is Lorenzo Haire? What is my relationship with Lorenzo? So I met Lorenzo in the salsa scene. He is a DJ that he plays all types of music, but I think most people know him for playing in the salsa scene. He has a nice little following up in DC. I know that for sure. I know you came down to Miami for a little bit. I also got to know him a little bit better through a mutual friend of ours named Shaka Brown, who I hope to have on the show one day. So that is how I got connected with Lorenzo. But Lorenzo, please tell the people all about you.
Who is
Yeah.
this Lorenzo guy? Okay, well, like Flip said, my name is Lorenzo Haire. Funny enough, the average person who has known me for the last 10 years probably just knows me as Renzo.
Yeah.
They don't really call me Lorenzo. They don't call me Larry, which I've gone by for years as well. People just say, hey, Renzo, which is my DJ name. So I guess that already, spoiler alert, I am a professional mobile DJ here on the East Coast. My home base is here in Washington, D.C., but I've traveled pretty much up and down the East Coast for gigs. As Flip mentioned, especially on the salsa scene, on the salsa circuit, the dancing and Congress or festival circuit, I'm all over that. Usually as one of the DJs that deals with the shows and um, the tech rehearsals and whatnot. And I also DJ at night too for some of the parties. But that is what I do professionally. So definitely right now at this moment, my profession has been hit a little bit with this pandemic. So what I'm doing right now is really perfecting, honing in on my craft and digging in to music that I've never been able to listen to before. Sometimes we're so obsessed with dealing with dance floor music that we never get to really listen to some of those B-side classics that are on some of these albums. So I'm enjoying some of the time doing that, listening to side B of Drake's album.
Yeah.
It's like, what does the other side have? And so also trying to grow and looking into some IT stuff. I really have always been sort of interested in IT, but never really pursued it. So I'm taking this time off during the pandemic to try to pursue another feather in my hat because I am 47 years of age and can't be lifting speakers forever. So, but yeah, I'm originally from the West Coast. I'm a LA guy, California guy. But I've been here since, I believe, September of 2004. I moved to North Carolina, Raleigh-Durham area. Then I got promoted in my job and moved to Chicago for 2 years. Luckily, the 2 years I was there, they said it was mild winters, but those winters were still enough for me to realize that that's not the place for me. So I was dating someone at the time who had just moved to Washington, D.C. herself. And so I said, hey, instead of going back home, why not continue this journey of exploration for a little bit? And so I moved out to Washington, D.C. of Cinco de Mayo of 2007. Easy day to remember because it was Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
And so I've been here ever since. I took a dip down to your neck of the woods in Florida for about a year and a half. Wasn't a huge fan of Miami per se, sorry. I mean, it just didn't quite fit my personality that well. Uh, Moved up to Tampa for about a year, and then I kept getting so many business opportunities back here that I ultimately moved back to DC. So I've been back here for 4 years. And as you mentioned, I am roommates with a mutual friend, Shaka Brown, and he and I are just trying to change the world in terms of music and festivals and online stuff. And so here I be,
All right.
2000 2020.
Yeah, a, it's an interesting decade so far. It's definitely come with a large adventure. 2020.
Do you consider this to be a part of the last decade or the beginning of the new decade?
I consider this to be the beginning of the new decade.
Of the new decade. Okay, so yeah, so we're off to a very patchy start.
Well, yeah, that
Exactly.
yin and yang comes with everything. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we'll get into that. So,
Mhm.
thank you for explaining your journey and how you've gotten to where you are. But now we're going to get into the question that is the basis of this whole show. And that is, with everything that's going on, with the decade starting the way it is, what's been engaging your thoughts?
Basically, I would say human interaction.
Human
With
interaction.
the advent of social media, I've really always been really interested in how humans interact with each other. And I would say in the last year in particular, how the opposite sex interacts with each other. A lot of my topics on Facebook have to deal with dating, interacting between the sexes, and if it's same sex, whatever interaction between two people that
Yeah.
are mutually attracted to each other, irrespective of their sexual orientation. But in particular, since we've been doing this for centuries now, and we seem to really be struggling with it with the advent of social media, with dating and the whole dating culture. And so that's really been engaging my mind in 2019, a lot of 2019, and so far here in 2020. Now we've had a little bit of a hiccup here with this pandemic. Nobody's really dating that much unless they were already dating. So we'll have to put that on pause for a little bit. But I would say for the last year and a half to 2 years, that's really been engaging my thought, what's been on my mind. And now here with this latest in police brutality, also how humans are interacting with each other from a racial standpoint too. And you just, between those two things, I would say those have been dominating what has been engaging my thought process. Think about a lot of other things too. Music, I never stop thinking about music. I'm always enthralled by, music and how it's changed over the years and how some of it stayed the same. And we've had a few deaths recently of some of our legends that's had me really thinking about, okay, will we ever have a legend like that again? Will we ever have a Prince again? Or will we ever have a Michael Jackson again? I know you and I were talking about music earlier and some of the people that have passed on and some of the musical geniuses. And I think about that probably as a tertiary theme. But the first two, I would say, is just definitely human interaction between the sexes and dating, and then also our racial composition of kind of where we are, the headspace that we're in. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's flesh out a little bit of this human interaction when it comes to dating, since it's the first thing you mentioned.
The biggest thing that is confounding me is that I hear people are super excited about uh, online dating, right? All these options, it's like a smorgasbord now. And so people think they have all these options. And from what I see, I look at it, I feel like people are almost overdosing on these options. So I think people bring that up as if it's a good thing. And it sounds like a good thing on the surface, like, oh, I have all these options in front of me now, whereas opposed to before it had to be, when you catch eyes with somebody across the room, and or somebody hooked you up, your mom hooked you up with somebody in church or whatever. But now I hate to be cynical about it, but I don't know. I feel like online dating and the internet has made it worse, really, to be honest with you. I think people are overdosing on these options that they have out there. And I think it makes you realize that while you have now, instead of having 10 people in front of you, you have 10,000 people in front of you. But you realize that now that just makes the odds even that sadder when you sit and look at the people that you actually genuinely connect with. Everybody puts their best foot forward in terms of their resume and their pictures and the certain angles that they take with the pictures to make themselves look good, and who they like and who some of their heroes are. And you connect on paper like that. But I just don't see relationships necessarily being any better. As a matter of fact, I feel like I hear more complaints and more complaining these days, even with so many options in front of me. And then just the most cliche of cliche things that we hear all the time, which is communication is key. We always hear that. We've been saying that for decades. Ever since you and I can remember dating the opposite sex, that's the first thing we hear. Oh, communication is key. Make sure you communicate. And for some reason, we still seem to be flooding that. I don't understand, with all the self-help and all the books and all the, what do you call it? Where you can listen to it on podcasts while you're driving. There's just so many things to listen to help us out with that. And we still seem to just be struggling mightily with it. And then it just leads me to another. You're going to say, this guy is so cynical. Why did I bring this cynical guy on to the interview? But it brings me to another cynical outlook, which is, I just feel like, wow, our self-centered and, it's really out of control in terms of our self-absorption with ourselves. And I think that's really taken a play into the dating theme too. People's standards and their sort of thoughts of themselves, and not being, with so many options out there, not willing to give people like a chance. It's like right away, as soon as they see something that looks like it just slightly disagrees with something from them, they're ready to bail, type of a thing. And I think that has us in sort of this sort of sad cyclical state where we are now, where dating isn't any better with all the coaches and all the options out there to us. We're still struggling with it. And so from my point of view, if I were to talk to anybody who's listening, I think it really involves us. I think it starts with us. Like we're projecting out to everyone else. The problem is, oh, there's no good guys out there. Oh, there's no good girls. And, but a lot of the time the problem really is with us. And so that's kind of like a couple of the observations that I've made.
So let's flesh that out a little bit. And now we can bounce these ideas off each other's, and let's put our coach's hat on and think solutions. Let's think solutions. Yes. Because, you can look at all that, and all that is out there for the world to see. It's very easy to focus on, but adaptation and evolution happens when you try to do the hard work of fleshing things out.
Of course.
So you're saying communication is key, and I 110% agree that communication is key. But I think part of where the cynical part comes in is that people say communication is key, but it's only if it's the communication that they like and that they agree with.
Of course.
Where that in and of itself is coming from a place of ego. Mm-hmm. So to your point, if you want to have the solution for that, you need to realize when it is your ego that is trying to take control of being in the relationship, instead of, let me actually sit back and listen to the communication that this other person is trying to communicate with me, and vice versa for the other person. So what do you think of that type of idea?
Yeah, and the thing is that that's easier said than done, of course. I mean, I feel like the average person knows that. They know that it boils down to ego, but for some reason, I'm not sure the ego will allow them to realize that, And so I think we have so much practice with that every day online, not even in dating, but just everyday communication. When you post something and someone disagrees with you, right away, you can let your ego step back, like you said, and then hear the other person out and know that I know this person, they're my friend. They're obviously not my enemy. They're just giving me a different perspective than my own. They're just saying, hey, try this on for consideration type thing. And here I am getting angry with them, ready to delete them, ready to unfriend them, just because they have a strong opinion just as strong as mine, except in the opposite direction. So we have practice with that every day, whether it's politically, whether it's just gender stuff, race stuff, whatnot. All that stuff pops up in our timeline every day. And so for the people that are constantly on their feed going through this stuff, you get to test your ego out every day. Like if you feel like, but the problem with it comes acknowledgement. You have to acknowledge that, hey, first of all, guess what? I have an ego. And guess what? It can be out of alignment. And so that's the hard part. Like, I understand that. I know that, I definitely have an ego with certain things. I have an unrelenting worldview with certain things, And so I try to every day go on my wall and engage in conversations, especially with people that I don't. I have a very diverse group of friends on my Facebook. And so for me, I feel like it's great practice. But I think what a lot of people do is they curate their friends list so that it just becomes a repetitive echo chamber, you know, of
Yeah.
only people that agree with them. And where's their real growth in that? You know what I mean? It's awesome to have your friends go, yeah, boy, yeah, girl, yeah, you're right. You know, but where's their real growth in that? And so that's one thing I actually do take pride in my friends list, is that my friends list is comprised of different people from different walks of life, different age groups, different racial backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. And I try to go in and listen to, I don't agree with a lot of, you know, what they say sometimes, but I do allow them, as long as it's civil, a format to discuss their differences on my page. And I also try to listen more than I speak. I put my post up, I say what I say. It may be strong and it, you know, but then I try to step back after that and really listen to kind of what people are saying. Now, sometimes people are just a little uncivil, or they're just kind of repetitive, or they're trolling, and I have to come in and flesh that out.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, I would say, I would hope people would take advantage of that, of your friends list. What's the purpose of having 2,500 people on your friends list if you only listen to the same 15 or same 20? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, so that would be my advice to others and to myself too. I struggle with it sometimes too, especially in this time with such a sensitive thing like this, you know, racial strife that we're sort of dealing with currently. You know, it's tough to hear people out sometimes. And so I struggle with that even more so than gender and politics and anything. Right now, currently, I probably struggle with that more than anything, you know. And so in this time, I'm trying to use that as a mechanism for me to learn, to understand how to adjust my ego and how to hear worldviews and opinions and narratives that are different than my
All right. Well, I like that. I will say that I do think that your posts, although they are long sometimes, they are very thought out and thoughtful, and you try to, you know, ask in a very open-ended way so that you can get lots of different types of discussion points. You should
own.
start creating some sort of spreadsheet with the types of answers and be like, you know, 30% of you always answer this way.
I kind of do. It's mental. You're right. It needs to be a physical Excel spreadsheet, but I do it here sometimes. And then I try to, my recall isn't the best in my older age. And so I'm like, wait a minute. I feel like the majority of people felt this way the last time, but I have no
Yeah.
annotation of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, as a black man living in this 2020 world, and as I said, the pandemic seems to be accelerating things that were already bubbling underneath, and it seems to now be coming over. How do you feel? Just that's it. How do you feel about all of it? You know, we started touching on it, but now let's get into how you're really feeling about it.
Um, you know, it's difficult first and foremost, because I think, like you said, when it all, I am of mixed ethnicities. I'll just say
Okay.
that. I never really discuss with what. I just tell people I'm of mixed ethnicities, with white being one of them. So it's difficult sometimes, because first and foremost, I'm fighting a battle of my own, let me think of the proper wording here, of my own interpretation of what myself is. You say it, a black man, that's how I see myself. But then we go and we sit and think about that, and then I've had white friends go, well, why would you deny being white? You know, your mom is white. You know, why would you deny that side of, you know? And I guess it boils down to the look test, which is kind of simplistic, but it really, when you see me, it's like, I'm obviously not white. Okay, so maybe I don't look like a African
Yeah.
man, or, you know, a very a dark Afro-American person necessarily, but I am still black, without a doubt, unapologetically black. And so that's how I identify. But then again, even within our own community, it's tough, because I see people sometimes. I was just reading something today that was talking about people of mixed, you know, race, and how you're not really black. And so we're dealing with colorism within our own community. And that's just so heartbreaking to me to read that. Here I am getting ready to go stand on the front lines with this battle that we're facing right now. And then I feel like I'm taking shots from within my own community. So it's tough. It's really tough. It's tough to get on the front lines and battle with that. But at the end of the day, when the police pulls me over, there's no doubt that I'm Black. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember I was reading an article about Tiger Woods when, you know, he was Cablo Asian addict, whatever the term he used to describe himself. But after that Time magazine, you know, the piece where they doctor it and make you look darker than you really are, your mugshot piece, just like OJ.
Yeah.
So they did that with Tiger Woods, and then they put under the theme where the arrest record where it said race, Black, unequivocally Black. It doesn't matter what you identify yourself as.
Yeah.
When you're arrested, that's what they see you as, and that's what you're identified here in this whole social creation called race, you know. So I guess, yeah, overall I struggle with it. I struggle with whether I'm a Black man or whether I just want to be aracial. Just not at all. But that sounds very poetic when you sit and say that, and it sounds like you're kind of skipping out on responsibility a little bit by claiming, oh well, I'm just this brownish person in the middle that doesn't, you know. At the end of the day, in this society that we live in here in America, you're either white or non-white. So I'm not white. So obviously I have to, even though I'm half white, I am not white. So I have to sort of identify with being Black by default. So no matter which direction I go, it all seems to circle back to being Black, like you said. And I comfortably, unapologetically accept that and embrace that. And so with today and what's going on, to get back to your main question with today and how that applies to today, it's tough. It really is. It's tough because now here we are in the middle of a pandemic where you're encouraged to wear a mask and put a mask around, you know. So here you are going into a bank or a store or anywhere. You're already a Black man who already somehow evokes some kind of fear in people. And now you're a Black man with a mask around your face. And so it's like, it's even tougher. And, you know, God forbid if you happen to have a hoodie on as well, now you're just really stacking the cards in your disfavor. So, yeah, for so long, I've been what's called ambiguous. I've been able to live this ambiguous life, racially ambiguous, sort of sit in the middle comfortably as this sort of brownish guy. You don't know, well, is he Latino? Is he Black? Is he Arabic? Like, what is he, you know? While I relished in that as a youngster when I was younger, currently now for the last, I would say 5 years, I've taken on this sort of unapologetically Black stance. You know, it's like, I'm Black, I'm proud to be Black. When I was younger, I struggled with that too, of going through this white phase, the Duran Duran phase, the skateboarding phase, went through that whole phase and, you know, and kind of lost my roots there for a little bit. But I feel like I'm back now. It's very scary.
Do you still like Duran Duran though?
I do.
Okay.
I still love Duran. Notorious is still one of my favorite songs ever. And my favorite rock band is still the Eagles, still to this day. But, you know, I am a black man at this point. A little confused at times because I feel like, you know, we're not fully accepted as mixed race folks sometimes. We're not fully accepted sometimes, definitely not by the white side, and sometimes not necessarily by the Black side. So sometimes I sort of sit in this continuum of confusion in the middle type of a thing. But thanks to what's going on today, the choice has been made for me.
Yeah.
I'm Black. So, and it's scary because I like to go for jogs sometimes. I like to wear hoodies. When it's cold, I like to wear hoodies. But these are the things that I, as a black man, have to think about now. When I get pulled over, I have to seriously think of ways to save my life and ways to be non-threatening, you know. It gets tiring. It's tiresome at times. Luckily, I haven't been pulled over too many times. I've only been racially profiled, well, I feel like maybe twice throughout my life in terms of the police. I've only been called the N-word maybe once or twice when I was very young. So I haven't had to deal with that. And as you know, with the salsa world, the Latin dance world, You know, there's a lot of diversity, a lot of mixture. And as I sit ambiguously, you know, culturally ambiguous, I don't really run into a lot of problems with that, you know. But at the same time, I feel for my brothers and my sisters, and I think about what they have to go through and all the stuff that even on the Latin dance scene that they have to go through with stereotypes and stuff like that. And it bothers me, it worries me. So that sort of ties back into your what's on your mind type of a thing, or, you know, and that constantly stays on my mind too.
All right. So just like we did on the first one, what are some solutions that we can embody going forward, even if it's just the individual? Like Gandhi said, what is the change that we can be in the world? Because it's got to start with us, just like with the dating. It's got to start with how are you treating you? You know, just to circle it back to the dating, they're like, oh, you know, that player didn't treat me right. And it's like, girl, but I don't see
Yeah,
you treating you right.
yeah, yeah,
How are you gonna expect? And the same thing, vice versa. So even
yeah.
with this race, with these racial tensions, how do we treat ourselves good and learn how to do that inner work?
Yeah, I think in this age of information, we have so much information that is available to us. We all know what's happened now. We're not, we know what Thanksgiving really was. You know, we know what Plymouth Rock and all that stuff really was. Now we're not
Yeah,
fooled anymore by what was taught to us in school. And so now what we have to do is, now that we understand what has been historically done to us as a people in terms of us hating ourselves and not thinking we're beautiful and not thinking we're smart and not thinking we're capable. I think there's so many resources out there now to show contrary to that. And so I think at an individual level, at a minimum, at an individual level, we need to learn to accept that and embrace that and embody that. And then as a community, you know, on the systemic level, you're right. I'm not exactly sure, but I can speak from an individual level and from a cultural level. We need to understand the beauty, and we need to learn to respect and to love ourselves. So how can you expect someone else to help you if you can't help yourself? How can you expect someone else to love you if you can't love yourself? So we need to learn to do that on an individual level. You know, starting with myself. I feel like I have began that journey. Finally, it took a while. I was probably not until I was maybe 38, 40 years old until I started that journey. It takes a while sometimes, but it's never too late to learn about yourself, to respect yourself, and because, you know, you are what you project. If you have the utmost pride and respect in yourself, anything that anyone else says is irrelevant, you know? So someone calling you the N-word or something like that carries no weight. Like at this point in my life, if someone were to say that to me, I would used to have a visceral knee-jerk response to that and want to fight, and want to get violent, and want to, you know, bash their head in or whatever. Now I would laugh in their face like that. Like that's, so you know you're desperate at this point when that's the bag you have to dig into to try to
yeah,
make me
to
mad or
evoke
to make
a
me,
response.
yeah, that reeks of desperation. And so when you come to that point in your life where you um, have that kind of self value and self worth of yourself, then there's nothing anyone else can do, you know, at an individual level. Now, as a community, we definitely have a lot of work to do, because now not only do we have to teach ourselves to do that, now we have to teach a lot of other people who have no concept of that to do that. No
Yeah,
concept of self-love, no concept of respect, no concept of what has been done to us historically. So it's a tough hill to climb, you know, because sometimes some of the people aren't willing, they're not
yeah,
able,
yeah,
you know, and it sucks to have people in front of you and to have to be, once again, feel like you're fighting your own people, you know.
yeah,
And so at the community level, it's tough, but we can only try, you know, we can only start with ourselves, convince other people to start with themselves, and then it emits itself outward. And you start in your
yeah,
community, you get your community type, because I've seen other communities able to do it. They haven't had to deal with the years and years and decades and centuries of systemic oppression that we have here necessarily, but you know, they have done it. It can be done. So it's a tough battle, but it starts at home, really. And sometimes it sounds kind of cliche to say again. I hate to say cliche things, but it's just the obvious thing. You got to
Yeah.
start with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
But on a systemic level, I don't know, brother. You can't make evil people not be evil,
Yeah.
you know? And systemically, on the systemic level, we're talking about greed and evil. There's just no other way to package that. And no matter what kind of education, no matter what kind of self-love, self-respect, no matter what you do, it seems like the only way to be able to is to overthrow that. There's really just the only way to, it's asinine for us to sit and expect evil people to not be evil. So
To evoke the symbol of the yin and yang, do you think that maybe evil is something we need to embrace because it's out of the evil that the light comes? And the opposite, right? You can't have good without having bad. So is
yeah,
there maybe some inner peace that we got to have with that? Look at it, listen to it, know that it exists, and be, for the people who choose that path, be like, you're allowed to be that way. I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to like it. There's and and just accept that that is nature the way it is, because nature has both good and bad.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm a big believer of the yin and the yang as well. Um, it would just probably be excruciatingly boring if everybody was good. It's like we'd have no Hollywood stories. Like, what movies would we watch? Like, there's
There
no
would be
bad
no
people.
hero's journey. There would be no Lord of the Rings, no Harry Potter, no Matrix.
None of that stuff. And so, yeah, I definitely think you need that, but at a systemic level, it's tough because I feel like that's where a lot of the world's problems stem from. When I don't care if my neighbor is just an evil person and just doesn't say hi, is grumpy, is misogynistic or whatever. It's like that's just a one individual person who has little bearing on my life other than them being my neighbor, unfortunately. But when the system itself is like that, you know,
Yeah.
that's tough. That's really tough because that's why we are where we are. How do we overcome that? Um, could we still have a system that is inherently good and still have bad guys at the community level? Yeah, sure. But you don't want an overarching system that is evil because it just kind of smothers so much that is up under it. So yeah, I agree. I agree. It is a necessary evil, not to play on words. It is a necessary evil to have, but I wonder. First of all, I don't know if it'll ever happen because greed seems to kind of run everything. To be honest with you, so I don't know if it'll ever completely go away. But to your question, should we sit back and just kind of accept that as a given? Yes and no. Um, yes, I think once you get it through your mind that some people just are evil and some systems are just built on evil, for and by evil men. Yeah, I think once you realize that, I do think it'll help you understand better why we are where we are, why we are where we are. But I don't know about. I feel like your question almost was saying, and correct me if I'm wrong here, should we just accept that? Is that what you mean by that? Should we accept that fact?
From my perspective, I would say, should we recognize it?
Okay.
You don't have to accept it, but should we
Right.
recognize it and be like, it is what it is?
Yeah.
And then from
Yeah.
that point, we can, okay, now that we've recognized, because again, you can't do anything about something until you recognize it first.
Right. Correct.
That this is a part of nature. Nature brings earthquakes, hurricanes, it'll burn down the forest. Nature is good and bad.
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is it
Yeah.
is all. And
Yeah.
we are nature. We are not, like, something that I say a lot is, we are not a part of nature. We are a part of nature.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
it's going
Yeah.
to manifest itself through us as well, in that manner of, hey, sometimes I'm going to be dirty, nasty, and break you down, and sometimes I'm going to show you love, and
Yeah.
it's going to be all good and rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could see my shirt here, and I just
Yeah,
so
that
happen to have the shirt.
coexist.
Coexist, baby. We got to learn to coexist. And I didn't wear this shirt specifically for this interview, but now that I'm here, I'm like, it makes sense.
Yeah, take
It
it, put it out
just,
there.
it just makes sense.
That's what I
Uh,
want to do.
Coexist. Yeah, I
So,
just, I wonder, I do, getting back to the conversation we're having and coexistence, I really wonder, can that exist? Because greed, you can still have greed to a point where you don't have to have $1 billion and everyone else has 35 cents. It's like you can have $250 million. Maybe some other people can have $40,000 and $50,000, and I
yeah.
feel like the earth would be okay with that. But I feel like too much of the former happens where, no, I've got to have $1 billion, and and then Bob next door has $2 billion. So guess what? Now I want $3 billion. And I don't care if somebody else has 35 cents. I would never push anything anywhere near a socialist sort of platform or anything like that. But I felt like if wealth was distributed a little, just give it a little tip, like that.
Mm,
Yeah, not like this, but
yeah.
like just give it a little bit of a tip, and I feel like we would be a little bit better and able to coexist. Because some people, not everybody wants $1 billion, some people just want $50,000, they're like, I feel like I would be cool with $50,000, a roof over my head, somebody not bother me. I can go to the store, walk back home and feel safe. I'm okay with that, and I just think that's the part where some of those people that, with $10 billion fail to realize that that's all that people really want. They don't want $10 billion like you have.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing all those thoughts. And now we're going to move on to the next question, which is the one I told you it was coming, and now you just got to answer with your gut. But who would you like to speak to, dead or alive?
I think, what's his name? There's two, because I'm really into music. So I would say musically it would be Prince,
Okay.
for the person that is dead. I just feel like the guy was such a musical genius and sort of, had this sort of strange clairvoyance, and I don't know how much, sometimes when you hear people like that and they sound like they're just super intelligent and sort of seeing eye type thing, they're like always high. So you wonder like how much of that is actually them and how much of that is the weed talking, and or whatever.
Well,
Yeah,
they
well,
have said before that all, mind altering things, all they do is bring out who you really are.
yeah.
So,
Which is, I think, is awesome. Like we were talking about
well,
earlier
it
about how,
depends because if you're an asshole, then.
yeah, yeah, you don't want to pull that out. But yeah, Prince just seemed to think on a level that a lot of people in his field, precisely, or specifically in his field, just didn't think on. I mean, I really love Bob Marley too, but you know, I feel like Prince just was on a thought level that was above and beyond so many of us and his colleagues as well. Alive, I would say it would be African American economist. Is it Walt Williams? Which one is the one that I'm? Yeah, because it's strange because he seems to be like when you listen to him talk, he seems to sound like a very conservative black economist, which is good, not bad per se necessarily. I feel like a lot of his stances would go against what people in the black community would embrace. But at the same time, he doesn't seem like someone like, let's say, a Ben Carson or someone like that would be considered a
Yeah.
sellout
Yeah.
in the community either. Like you don't have to go full on sellout to have, we're not a monolithic people. It's okay to have a different opinion and a different thought process than everybody else in the black community. And I feel like Walt Williams uh, is that
Okay.
kind of voice. And economics, I feel like one of our largest hurdles is economics. And I feel like someone like that would have a lot to say. And so far, I've only read a little bit of his stuff so far, But so far, I must say, when I watched a couple of YouTube clips of his interviews, that I'm really interested in sort of what he has to say. Because when you look at him, he's definitely black. He's a black man. There ain't no skipping. And when he speaks, he doesn't, or what he speaks about, he doesn't sound like someone who's trying not to be black either.
Yeah.
He just sounds like someone who has an opinion and a point of view that a lot of people in the black community may not agree with. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with having a voice that other people may not agree with. So yeah, Walt Williams and Prince.
If you could go back and speak to your 18-year-old mother, what would you tell her? One kernel of wisdom that you could drop. Mom at 18.
And it's funny too, because my mom was exactly 18 when I would tell her this. Don't have sex with that man. That man being my father. No, I mean, I guess I wouldn't be here, but if I wasn't here, it wouldn't matter because I wouldn't exist. My 18-year-old mother. Ooh, that's funny. I was just speaking to my mother the other day. What would I tell her at 18? Because I have a whole lot to tell her at 66. 18. Huh. I would definitely, because my mom, first of all, I don't completely discuss my ethnical makeup, but my mom is white. My mom is Caucasian. And she married a not Caucasian man, a very dark not Caucasian man. And this is in 1973. I'm giving away my birth year here. I would tell her that you're being very brave doing what you're doing, because at that time, that was highly frowned upon.
Yeah.
And this happened in Arkansas,
Ooh,
nonetheless.
wow.
The deep South.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Bible
So
Belt.
I would probably grab my mom by the shoulder and go, what are you doing? You're either being supremely naive or supremely brave. And that's debatable to this day. But I would definitely pull her to the side and either congratulate her on one of those two. You're being supremely brave, which is awesome. And I don't know how you can gather the strength to be this supremely naive. I don't know how you do that. So one of the two.
It's probably a little bit of both, because at 18, how much do you really know?
Yeah.
But you think you know it all.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But those things I would think you would know. But then again, maybe not, because she was raised in a town, and this happened in a town where, as my dad put it, the only thing black in the town were the tires on the cars.
Yeah.
So maybe she was naive. Maybe that was a plus, to be that naive, to understand that what she was doing was supremely dangerous.
Yeah. Wow.
But I'm here as a result, and I'm happy that happened. But I remember learning about racism with her 7 years later in a grocery store, or like a 7-Eleven, like a convenience store. We're in the store and see somebody looking at us and whatnot, and all of a sudden my mom pops off, "What are you looking at?" And I completely didn't get it, did not understand, until I learned later on that somebody had an issue with her walking around with a little mixed baby,
Yeah.
Little sandy curly head little kid, So yeah, I would talk to her about that if I was 18. I would really try to get in her head.
If she was 18.
Yeah, she's 18. Yeah. And
Right.
try to understand what's going on in her head. You know what? I'm going to talk to her about that. I'm glad you brought this up. I'm going to call Mom and go, "Mom, what the devil were you thinking?"
So after we release this show, which might be this week or next week, you can give us the follow-up.
Yeah. From a conversation springs another conversation.
Yeah.
Great.
That's why I like to have these things, because again, you see things from so many perspectives, you get so many ideas, and as I like to say, then your ideas can have sex and have idea sex babies.
Triplets. Nice.
Are there any questions you would like to ask me?
Yeah, I think so. What propelled you to do this, to want to get on here and to find out information about people and to possibly share some of your self with people in a public format?
Well, being that we're living in the world we're living in, I, s- I definitely see that there's a lot of people putting out negativity, putting out how bad everything is. And part of the fundamental beliefs I have is that most people really are not that bad. They're actually probably pretty good if you just sit down and listen to them from a place of not trying to judge them. And if you do that with childlike curiosity, the amount of learning that you're going to undertake, is going to be on par with the greatest, thinkers in the world. Those people, when I think of people like, Einstein, Newton, Da Vinci, Steve Jobs, Benjamin Franklin, all the people Walter Isaacson has written about,
Mhm.
all of them, one of the common things is they all had a childlike curiosity.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
have a childlike curiosity, much like you, for people. The
yeah,
interesting thing about you is, since you're a DJ, so you get to see people. Of course, you see them in a festive way most of the time, but you just have a big insight on how music and the emotion of music makes people feel and move and all that. So you have a really big insight into humans in that perspective. So I guess this is me being a DJ in a different way.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, yeah. I completely agree with that, and I think that's why people always ask, why are you always on Facebook writing this stuff and like and stoking these stoking the flames, and like you said, it's just a genuine curiosity, and like how do people come to the conclusion that they come to, and what are
Yeah.
they thinking? How do they think? How do they get there? Is it rational? Is it irrational? Do they do any self inventory, or is it just all sort of out blasting of their narratives? And so it's interesting. So yeah, you're just doing it in an interview format as opposed to writing and going back and forth on Facebook.
Yeah, well, when you sit with one person, again, look at all the perspective we got. Like I really felt the emotion when you answered that last question about talking to your mother. Like I felt that.
Hmm.
Where when you're talking in a big group, not that you can't feel, but when
Right.
you actually just sitting down, listening to one person and taking in that person,
Yeah.
you can feel it more. It's more raw. It's more real.
Yeah, a lot gets lost in translation on written text on social media, and I'm
Yeah.
learning that too. And
Yeah.
people keep telling me that I should do this. Oh, you should start a podcast and blah blah blah, and it's like, then it would be a task that I had to do.
Yeah.
Like I go to Facebook, I do it because that's what I feel at the moment. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But so do you feel, I guess my part B of that question, do you feel any less unnatural having to have these conversations sort of planned out and formatted as opposed to just having a natural conversation with somebody?
Not really. We've had natural conversations before, and we will continue to have them. But if I can set up a platform where, number one, I get to practice listening, which is something I want to get better at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Number two, I get to learn more from others and get feedback from other people saying, oh, I really learned something about this interview. Like the
Yeah,
one that I just released last week was with the nurse up in New Jersey, talking about her COVID experience and talking about what it's like to be a nurse in New
yeah,
Jersey, going through the COVID, overtime, working. And on top of that, oh, I'm a single mother.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I had a
Oh,
friend of mine text me, say, hey, I listened to the interview, and I really resonated with the part of her talking about being a parent and trying to figure all this out while she's dealing with basically people dying all around her at work.
yeah.
And if I
Awesome.
can help other people get something out of this, then both of us sat here and did something to try to, again, drown out all the other noise that's happening.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Much respect, brother. Much respect.
Thank you very much. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
you're a patient man, and I'm trying to work on my listening skills as well. So
Hmm.
uh, I definitely picked something up from this interview. Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. So let the people know where they can find a little bit of DJ Renzo.
Okay, so I am mostly on Facebook, but in terms of my live sets, I have to go over to Twitch because Facebook be hating because of the copyright stuff. And so, but on Facebook, if you look up Lorenzo Haire, last name Haire, I have some of these same conversations Flip and I were just talking about, but in the
While you're
written
playing
form.
music.
Yeah, while I'm sitting and surveying music, and I have some of these same conversations going on in the background. Also, as a DJ, I'm mostly here out of Washington, D.C. So if you want to get a taste of sort of what I do, and when I do my DJ sets now online, I actually like them almost as much as I like my live sets, because people are in the chat room. It's all about the chat room. When I'm DJing, when I'm out and about, I don't know what you're thinking about what I'm playing. I don't know what your context to the music is. But now with this new live format, I hear people in the chat room talking about how they lost their virginity to this song, or how that song was, played at their wedding, and so it's really fun. And so if anybody is interested in not only just listening to music online, come and follow me over on Twitch. It's www.twitch.tv/DJ Renzo 80. And I play every Wednesday and Saturday night, different themes. I think the last one I had was R&B vibes. Before that, we did divas in the industry, where we covered a lot of the women artists out there. And then we did 80s before that, 90s, I think. So different themes. We have different themes.
Don't forget 10 toes up and down.
10 toes up, 10 toes down, which is my slow jam session that I do probably twice a month. I try to do that late at night, when you just kind of want to curl up on the couch with a candle and just kind of, either by yourself or with your vacation boo. But yeah, that's where you can find me currently, since I'm not out DJing at any of my spots really until probably August, September maybe. And come join us. Come join us in all the frivolity in the chat room.
Yeah, I just had an idea before we close it out. I had an idea for your podcast, and it could be, "This had happened when this song came on." That could be the name of your podcast. And just tell the stories of people when this song came on, this story happened.
That is actually an awesome, because I do a total request thing that I got coming up. But now you're right. I think I will do one where it's total request, but add a request for me that has some kind of significant meaning to you. A song that has, you got in a fight. You remember your biggest fight after school? They had it on. You were pumped up. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Flip.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. So again, thank you for your time and attention, because it is the greatest gift we can give to each other. For more information on WEYT, you can find WEYT on YouTube. It's WEYT Show. Facebook, WEYT, and Instagram, WEYT Show. So till then, let's spread more peace, love, and smiles.